This meeting is being recorded.
Goedemorgen.
Goedemorgen.
It's me and you again.
It's a coffee break in the morning.
Exactly. Did you have yours? Perfect. Cheers. Anything for you.
Yes.
Great.
Using my earplug. Yes.
Quit.
When I'm coaching, I get more personal stories in my head. So I noticed it's changing. I am more in connection with everything that's happening inside of me, and it's also appearing while I'm coaching. I normally don't tell a lot of personal information or stories during my coaching. And now sometimes when I pops up and I think, okay, they can relate to it, I tell something. But I'm wondering how I can make the distinction between, is this helpful or is this just because I notice something for myself, and how to make the distinction.
Okay, you want to have the in-depth analysis of it? I'm joking.
In-depth analysis.
Test
Now
it.
I'm curious.
Test it.
Test it.
Yeah. See, like you have an intuition, speak it out, and you can say to the client, hey, this is coming to me. I don't know if this is going to fit or not. It's an intuition. And then you speak whatever comes, right? And you frame it as an intuition. I found that in the beginning, I was often having like a strict frame of, oh, now I was wrapped up in my own thinking, and maybe that's not relevant. Let's focus back on the client. Or I might have a thought that comes in that's very radical, like a sentence or something where I'm like, ooh, I don't know if I can say this, right? I think you can, and it's more to the framing, how you bring it across, right? Not as a truth, but as something potentially to offer. And I liked what one of my coaches, he was a trainer where I studied. He would say, you basically you put a menu on the table, and the client chooses what they want from it, right? So when he would, for example, offer me an insight or offer me advice, he would frame it as like, hey, this is something that I put on the table. You can take it or leave it, right? And then he would share whatever it is. For me, that has worked very well. And my thoughts on like how do I distinguish it, I couldn't tell you, because it might feel different for you than for somebody else. I look at how does it feel? How does the inside feel in my body? Like what's the sense in my body when I recognize it? And that tells me a lot, but I couldn't tell you like, okay, this is the exact feeling. Then you know it's the truth. Yeah. Helpful?
Yeah, helpful. This is the way the last few weeks I've been doing it. And I noticed that clients pick up on it because it's relatable.
Yeah. Like you make yourself more human.
Yes.
Yeah. Great. That's good. I know like in some coaching schools, you don't do a lot of personal story or so. Like you don't share so much story in general because it's like too collared, what they say. I haven't found that to be true, because I think most human beings suffer from the same kind of insecurities and fears. And I've had it many times that when I shared, I don't know, I had a client who struggled with thoughts about women, and then I shared like, hey, doesn't matter if you're married or in a happy relationship, you're a man. Like I have thoughts about women, right? Like it's just, and I haven't met a man, and then I'm sharing stories um out of my experience of like meeting other men and really happily married men, and then having this conversation, and he was like, I don't need to judge myself for having a thought, right? Like, yeah, but it came out of me sharing a very personal story. Or me, like, I had a I have a client who lost a significant sum in investment, right? And then I'm sharing like how I lost a significant sum in investment, and makes it very relatable. And sometimes the client can have this impression of us as like superhuman, because the way we communicate with them is without really a lot of personal drama or anything, right? So it gives this impression of the coach as this aloof person that has it all figured out. And I don't think that it's a helpful image for anybody. I think it's way more helpful to be human with another human being than to try to be like an idealistic version of what it is to be human.
Yeah, and if I think about it now, I see the distinction when I tell something and when I don't. It's you talked about it's a feeling, and I can see sometimes it pops up and I think, okay, good insight for me, and I put it aside and it feels different.
Yeah.
And when I speak it out, it's a different feeling. It's like, yeah, it's more in the place almost.
Yeah. 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 And there you can watch, like, if there is any hesitation or like mediating it or like controlling it when then this wants to be shared. Like if I can observe one thing from, if I think beginning of coaching to like where I'm now, there's less mediation between having an impulse or something occurring and me speaking it or bringing it to the client. Like one stupid example, I had a client who was really concerned about what other people would think of her. And I had a session with her in a park, and basically the point that I wanted to make with her was like, this is all inside your head. Like most people don't even concern themselves with you. And suddenly I had this thought. It was like to throw myself on the ground in the middle of the park and play a dead bug, right? And that's exactly what I did. I just threw myself on the ground and played dead bug with people walking by. And then I walked back to her, sat next to her and said like, see, I'm still alive. And I don't know where it came from, why I did this, like, but it brought the point across in a way that I would not see in any coaching book or in any normal training that I have encountered, right? But it's how much interference is there of like, oh no, I can't say this. Oh no, this is too direct. Oh, that's a bit too personal. Like I found that we have this mediator inside our head that constantly tries to control what's going through. And the less that's there, the more direct the relationship is. And things can pop up that you don't even pre-think. You don't even, it's just whoop, directly coming out. Yeah.
And that I recognize. And that are the most, for me, and I think for the client, interesting coaching sessions when there is not much thinking going on inside my head.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I found that my practice in a coaching session is to constantly, if I find myself being wrapped up in my own thoughts, either it's something that I want to speak or I don't, and then just return my attention to the client. And the more I do that, the less wrapped up I am in the coaching conversation. I'm sure you have this experience too. Yeah.
Yeah. I think I'm a bit allergic to too much self-talk. From when I was hiring coaches for training, and a lot of coaches came in with a story. Yeah, I had, talking my profession, a burnout and I handled it really good. Now I know how to help people. I think, no. And then I have a kid with this, so I know how. No. And I think that's where maybe my holding back in telling personal things comes from.
Mm-hmm.
Because my vision of that was, it can be that it's interesting, but there has to be more than just being in there for myself so I can see it for other people.
Yeah, I think it's great if you have the awareness and not to use it to block whatever wants to come through, and to have an eye on when you make it about yourself, right? When you're in a conversation and it's more about what you right now see and want to see and are interested in and whatever, and it's not anymore about the other person. And there are a lot of people who, I don't know, had panic attacks and then they now help people not have panic attacks, right? And it can be useful, and it can also be very limiting because it's just one view that they experienced on one thing. Therefore, like coaching, I think is just such a genius profession because it takes you out of it and it creates a mirror of reflection rather than giving the answers.
Yeah, and I think it's for me, it's suddenly a shift between being with the client and everything that's just being a client. And now I see, okay, there are things popping up. They can be useful and and see not making it wrong to put those things out there or something.
Yeah. Good. Anything else for you, Sigrid?
No.
Good.
It was a short coffee break.
It was a short coffee break. I wish you a wonderful rest of your morning.
Yeah, for you too. Thank you for the conversation.
You're welcome. Thank you for bringing a topic.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
See you tomorrow.
See you tomorrow.